You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
And there we go. It is the final games of the fixtures. Actually, before we go on to the post-split fixtures in about 2 weeks as well. It's not a dull moment in Scottish football, and I'm not talking about the weather outside. I'm talking about the game today and the action of the weekend. We'll get into that soon. Joined today, as always, by Ethan Barlow to look back in the weekend's action of the games. And what a game we saw at the Falk at Skigum today. Ethan, it was a game of two halves. Falk at 3, Rangers 6.
Yeah, that crazy scoreline, as you said there, and you thought Falkirk were maybe going to cause a slight bit of an upset, but I think a few people expected them to give Rangers a really tough game, and that's exactly what they done in that first half with the 2-goal lead. Were they fully warrant of a 2-goal lead? Maybe not, but I thought they were certainly the better team in that first half and put Rangers under real pressure without Danny Röhl's team really mustering up many chances at all. And then obviously at the end of the first half, they do get that goal back, whether it was in or out. They obviously made the decision at the time, and they don't have the technology and Scotland to go back on it. I understand that. Rangers get the goal, well played, playing to the whistle. Falkirk, and I think John McGlynn will be really frustrated with that goal because it did seem to sort of turn the tide in the game, and Rangers start the second half really well, and then obviously find the back of the net 5 times in that second half, and then obviously Calvin Miller got the sort of consolation. It turned out to be penalty in the end, but yeah, an excellent game to round off another really entertaining weekend of Scottish football, and only the second weekend this season, I believe, where all 3 of the title challengers have won. So maybe they're up in their game for the final few games of the season, but there's obviously going to have to be some drop points when they come up against each other, and that's what makes it so entertaining.
Robbie has joined us as well. Robbie, what an exciting game of football that was.
A great game of a great weekend of football, Michael. Every game had its moments, to be honest with you. You look across the board at every game, either team could have won it in every game, to be honest with you. You start at Aberdeen, you end at Rangers, Falkirk, any team could have won the games of the weekend, and it made it exciting. But Ethan's right, look, the streak's been broken. The second time now this season that all 3 teams have won the same weekend. It shows they're all up for it. We'll get into analysing each performance and sort of pick out the bads for each team, because look, Celtic, Hearts and Rangers had their poor spells in each game, but they all had to get the job done. They all did get the job done, and it creates an even more exciting split now, getting into the sort of last 5 games of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ethan's Falkirk got off to a brilliant start in the game. What was that? 8 minutes. I think it was.
And then, 6 minutes. So even quicker.
Even quicker, yeah. And then you're thinking, okay, maybe it's a bit early for Falk to score in the game, but they go up the park and score again. But Rangers all over the place. Something I use in football analogy terms. Half time came at a good time for Rangers because they got the goal. Whether it was the ball was in or out or whatever, but you've got to play at the whistle kind of thing, and that gave Rangers a boost going into half time.
Yeah, it certainly did. It felt like a big turning point in the game because Rangers, up until that point, for the most part, hadn't really had any. Well, they had a few chances, but not too many clear-cut ones. Yusuf Chermati had one, I remember, but he was in an offside position from a Taylor Arsgaard free kick. But they got the goal back. Mikey Moore hit the post initially, then Raskin swings the cross in. Falkirk don't deal with it, and then finally Chukwani puts it in. And it felt like a big moment right before half time to get a goal back. And then obviously Rangers make the sub at half time. Credit to Danny Röhl, not a substitution that I don't think many people probably would have seen coming, taking off Mikey Moore, as he's, I would say, largely been Rangers' best player, certainly recently. And obviously bringing on Bojan Miovski. But, that's why Danny Röhl gets his gets his wage and earns the respect from the Rangers fans, because he brings Miovski on and he obviously gets a double and contributes to the second half onslaught, really.
I think as well, Robbie, that's given Rangers a boost, but Rangers would be a bit disappointed because they're not in the Scottish Cup semi-final, just to keep that kind of winning momentum going. They've got to wait, 2 weeks now before, I think they play, is it Motherwell at Ibrox?
Yeah, I believe Motherwell at home's a first split game. But it also gives them time to prepare. You know, you're looking to, if Celtic get pushed to extra time next week in the Scottish Cup semi-final, you know, that'll probably make their legs even more tired, you know, so it's a double-edged sword. Of course, Rangers want to be in every competition, they want to win every trophy that's available to them, but, you know, it could also be a blessing that they've got the 2 weeks, so I'm sure Danny Rowe the next 2 weeks will have a lot to work on. You know, it wasn't a complete performance for Rangers. They did leak 3 goals. They were 2-0 down in the game. So there's definitely improvements that needs to be made. And look, we know that with the Rangers team anyway. It's far from a finished product in terms of the squad. So, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done with Rangers, but they'll just be glad they got that game won, because if they didn't, we'd probably be coming on here and saying Rangers maybe don't have a chance at the league. You know, there is another 3 away games, including going back to Falkirk. The Rangers would need to play had the loss. So, it was a very interesting game. Obviously, yesterday when we spoke to Alan, I mentioned Broggio. Obviously, he was the first goal scorer in the game. Again, a player I thought showed all his ability. I thought Miller looked really good as well. And I to be honest with you, after it went 2-0, I thought it really could have been anything to Falkirk in the game. I thought the player could have went up and scored a couple more, but Rangers done well to fight back, and you're right, Ethan, I don't think MD seen that substitution coming at half time, especially Mikey Moore being the player to leave the field. I thought he maybe would have took Chukwani off the pitch. I thought he was probably Rangers' worst performer in the first 30-40 minutes, but ended up proving to score the goal that got Rangers back into it. So Rangers done well to fight back.
Yeah, and there is certainly things that Danny Rowe want to work on defensively, I think, especially. The last 3 games, conceded 6 goals. And yeah, they've just had some defensive hiccups, you could say. But on the other hand, I think 6 of the last 11 games, if I'm counting correctly, they've scored 4 or more goals in. So they're not struggling to find the back of the net. And I think I said this to Michael before we came on, that's one thing that I don't think Hearts and Celtic have the same scoring power at the minute that Rangers do. I know there's obviously always been doubts over Yusuf Chamiti and Bojan Miovski, but they're certainly looking a lot more likely than Celtic strikers at the moment. Obviously, Hearts have Claudio Braga and Lawrence Shanklin, but Hearts don't look like a team. I know they scored 3 at the weekend, but for the most part recently it's been 1 and 2 goals, whereas Rangers look like they can score in flurries like they did at the start of that second half, where they get 3 goals in 10 minutes. And I think Rangers have maybe the strongest firepower going forward, but I think also probably the weakest of the 3 defences at the minute, looking at the recent scores and performances. So that's obviously things you've got to consider. But big win for Rangers, coming from behind will always help the mentality, same as it did for Hearts yesterday. So yeah, massive win for Rangers, especially after the pressure that had been put on by the other 2. The record we've spoken about the 3 teams failing to win in so many weekends, and Rangers obviously get over that hurdle today. So big result for them. They can rest up, look forward to Motherwell at home, which, if you're looking at recent form, I know Motherwell were pretty decent, I think, against Hearts at the weekend, but you're really looking at recent form, the teams in that top 6, then maybe Motherwell at home is one of the more favourable fixtures. Not saying it's going to be easy by any means, because I don't think there is an easy fixture in that top 6, but if you understand what I'm trying to get at. So, you know, Rangers are in a really good place and an opportunity to put pressure on Hearts and Celtic. Obviously they do play on the Sunday, but a chance to take maximum points, and the likelihood is that Celtic and Hearts won't.
And I believe, Robbie, that Rangers are away to Spain now till Friday. They go to a training camp over there. I don't know why they just can't stay here and train, because it's nice sunny weather that we're having in Scotland. But are we going to like to be in that Rangers dressing room at half time?
No, but I think it almost gave them a reality check. We'll never know, obviously, what Danny Rose said to these players, but you can imagine it's along the lines of you've got 45 minutes to save your season type stick. It's very much you need to go out there and show the fans that we're still in this title race. And they done it. Look, Chamiti's one of the weirdest players in Scottish football because one week it looks like he could score 1,000,000 goals, and the next it looks like he couldn't score at all. He's such a weird player to watch, but you're right, Ethan. I think Rangers do have the best firepower, and right down to Bojan Miovski, who I thought came on and looked really impressive at a time in the game where they needed somebody to come on and be impressive. And obviously, he'd already scored when Rangers had sort of put themselves ahead, but I thought he looked really good as well as Chamiti. So it's proved to be a pretty good team, top Michael. But I don't imagine it was nice for the Rangers players to sit in the dressing room and probably took quite a shouting, to be honest, after Danny Rowe. But look, Ethan was right when what he said earlier. It's the reason Danny Rowe's paid the big bucks. He's made the big decisions in games. He's tweaked the system countless amounts of times, and it's worked. And you're right, Ethan. You're looking at the post-split fixtures. There's no a single easy game for any team in the top six, and that's what's going to make it even more exciting. We've got Rangers travelling back to Falkirk in the last game of the season. If that was a 9-goal thriller, you can only imagine what it's going to be when the pressure's high for both teams. So, it's going to be a pretty interesting split. But Rangers had to get the job done, Michael, and they done it in the end pretty convincingly.
Thanks to the comment here, Killer TV. Basically, it was saying Falkirk look as if they were decent in the first half, and Rangers got on at them as soon as it went 2-8, and it was over by Falkirk by me as well. I think. I mean, look, Ethan, we can sit here until like the end of the season and say, "Oh, was that ball in? Was that ball out?" But I don't care what anybody says. It's you've got to play into the whistle. But I think that gave Rangers a bit of a boost going on at half time.
Yeah, it certainly did, because they looked down and out in that first half, and I think it was one of you that said that Falkirk looked likely to go on and get a third at some points in that first half, until really the end of the half, where Rangers had a little bit of a sort of streak of opportunities. They didn't look like scoring at all. They obviously get the goal through Chukwani. As we've said, out of play or not, you need to play the whistle. I don't think we're ever going to find out whether it was in or out. That's just the point we're at with the technology for VAR and goal line technology in Scottish football. But credit to the Rangers, they played to the whistle. Falkirk didn't, and that just probably was a bit of a sucker punch to Falkirk at that point, right before half time. And then they never really got started in the second half. And despite getting that consolation penalty, Rangers were far better and ran right over the top of them. And I think John McGlynn will be really disappointed, because they were in a great position and they just had to try and make it difficult for Rangers to score goals in that second half, but they just didn't at all. And that'll be the really disappointing thing, especially after yesterday when, Hibs and Motherwell lose, and it's an opportunity for Falkirk to close the gap on both of them. They're in a great position, 2-0 up, and then I think I've not heard what he said after the match, but he'll probably think that his team should have done better to try and hold on to that lead. But there's still plenty of opportunity for Falkirk to have a really good end to this season and try and climb into those European places, because they've still got to play Motherwell and Hibs are obviously the direct competition at the minute. I know there's still quite a gap between Motherwell of 8 points and Hibs of 5, but Falkirk have shown that they're going to compete in this split. They're not going to be a team to be run right over the top of. So, disappointing for Falkirk, especially where they were in the match. But I think they'll be back. That's for sure.
I think as well that this comment here, thanks for watching on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, basically for me, it was like that kind of, if it wasn't a goal, at Easter Road, I'm not going to open that can of worms again, Ethan, as well, because we'll be on until next season talking about that. Robbie, yeah, Rangers are going to Spain, and I was thinking, Graham, on Friday we get not be fun if Hearts play Rangers in Spain, because Hearts are going to Spain as well, so it's all happening in Spain. But how beneficial will that be to get warm weather on the players back until they come back with kind of like 5 cup finals?
Yeah, I'll give them a huge boost. A much needed break. It's been non-stop action since December. Really, there's been sort of games every week, kind of Bali international break. So, it'll be a good rest for the players, a good chance as well to sort, some stuff out. We're talking about how poor they were defensively. Danny Rowe want to go out to Spain and try and tweak that, and try and rest assure his team that they can beat anybody, because it's so big now. You're right, it is cup final after cup final after cup final, and Rangers keep finding a way, like Celtic and like Hearts do, by the way. They both keep finding a way to win games, of course, as the Terrace TV comment there, the ball in or out shouldn't matter. As you say, you play at the final whistle, and that's something that I'm sure John McGlynn will be disappointed with. But Rangers did, and look, they keep playing to the final whistle. We can sit here and analyse, Rangers had their poor spells and Rangers could have been 3-0 down. But, if Rangers win the next 5 games and end up lifting that league, then nobody's going to look back at that and go, Rangers had poor performances here and there. It's about getting the results now for all 3 teams. And, we're going to speak about Hearts and we'll go into Celtic Park, I'm sure, and speak about them. It's all poor performances at spells in the game, but all 3 keep getting the win, and it just makes the split more exciting. You're looking really, first of all, at Hearts v Hibs, the first post-split game for Hearts. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It's going to be huge for the season, to see what happens. So I think the training camp, Michael, will work out well for Rangers.
Yeah, so it's a really good opportunity for them. And obviously, on the other hand, for Falkirk, they've got a massive semi-final and a massive opportunity as favourites to go to the Scottish Cup final. Dunfermline are not going to be a pushover by any means, as Neil Lennon's shown them to be, especially in that competition this season with some of the results they've got. He was at the game today, I seen. So, yeah, he'll be very wary of what this John McGlynn team can do, but he'll also look to exploit their backline like Rangers did today. The only thing I was thinking about the sort of refereeing for the ball being out. Do you think they sort of have the mindset of letting the play out, because the similar thing with offsides we see now, and sometimes even fouls in the final third where they let play sort of go to see if something's going to come of it before blowing back? Do you think that maybe come into the linesman's thoughts at all, or do you think that if he thought it was out, he would have blown up right away? It would be an interesting thing to sort of hear. I'm guessing that he just thought that the ball was still in play, so that's why he didn't give the goal kick. But obviously interesting, and unfortunate that we don't have the technology to look back and really get an 100% confirmation whether it was in or out. But as everybody said, you've got to play at the whistle in that situation, especially when the ball's right in front of your goal. And Falkirk certainly didn't. It seemed to be a sort of second pace. Even the commentary team seemed to be sort of operating at a second pace at that point. I think they had thought that it was going to get called, but it didn't. And credit to Shukwani, who was on hand to finish it and get Rangers back into the game before half time.
Ethan, I was going to say to you as well that the result from Falkirk, and it's got a big kind of derby game next week in the semi-final. What will that do to the confidence going into that game?
I think it might take a sort of little bit of a hit for Falkirk's confidence, but at the same time, they'll be able to look back and take positives from how they played in the opening half an hour, especially because they were absolutely all over Rangers, especially their pressing, and that's what we've known from this Falkirk team. You've seen it last week against Motherwell; they were excellent. I think some Motherwell fans and players saying that's the best performance of any team in the league they've come up against this season. And you look at how many of the goals last week they got from pressing the goalkeepers and defenders, and you've seen that Jaden Nagoma made a foul just inside the Falkirk half, which was deemed a yellow card, which I think was probably the right decision, but it's all off Calvin Miller closing him down and nicking the ball off him. So that's what Falkirk are going to do. Dunfermline will need to be ready for that coming. And yeah, I think Falkirk could have went in with more confidence. Conceding 6 goals is never going to be sort of going to, I don't know, have you been more confident in your defence, but at the same time, they scored 3 goals and had really good periods in the match. So I think Falkirk will still be favourites, and I'll still expect to beat Dunfermline, but Neil Lennon's team will certainly have something else to say about that.
We'll go on to talk about the game at Tynecastle, because everybody has about 55 views on the penalty incident, Robbie, and as well. But yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I was very surprised at Neil Lennon wearing sunglasses at the Falkirk Stadium, because it wasn't sunny today as well. Maybe it was kind of hide from the Rangers fans, I'm not sure, or the Falkirk fans for that matter as well. But yes, it's going to set next week's semi-final up to be a cracker. It was always going to be a cracker, but it's going to be interesting to see how Falkirk's going to bounce back now from this result today.
Aye, but look, John McGlynn has a very easy team talked into at Hampden next week. He tells the players, look, this is the biggest game of your season yet. You've got a derby against your rivals who are in the league below you. Go out and show them why you're the Premiership team and show them why you're the top 6 team. You know, you can imagine it'll be along their lines. But seriously, it's a massive game for Falkirk and Dunfermline, by the way. I'm no counting out Neil Lennon's team to cause an upset again. He's already done it countless times this season. His team are set up very well, Dunfermline. I know they took a loss yesterday to Partick Thistle, but you know, they're still very well prepared. They've got really, really big quality players in their team. Some players that I'd take at Simon, to be honest with you. So, you know, Neil Lennon's and Dunfermline fans, they're not going to count that for shocker, especially after the day. You're right, even it probably does take a bit of a hit to Falkirk players in terms of their mentality, in terms of the way they're feeling. They probably feel like they could have went and get a third in the first half and maybe wrapped the game up by that point, because I didn't see Rangers coming back for 3-0, to be honest with you. But it's going to be a big game, Michael. I think you're looking at the 2 semi-finals and you're looking at Falkirk Dunfermline has probably been the tastier out of the 2, to be honest. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's so much bragging rights riding in a game like this, because it's not like sort of your Edinburgh derby or your old firm Glasgow derby, whatever you want to call it, of the modern day, where they play each other, and I know people always complain about it 4 times a season and whatever else. The opportunity to right the wrongs of the last defeat comes around quite often, where we don't know the next time when we're going to see Falkirk and Dunfermline play each other. Obviously, Dunfermline have a chance, an outside chance, I would say, to come up to the Premiership this season, and Neil Lennon will have aspirations on that, certainly. But you don't know how often these games come around, especially in a semi-final, an opportunity to go to a final against 2 teams, both in St Mirren and Celtic, which I think for any of those 2 teams could beat probably. So yeah, you know, it's an excellent opportunity to go to the Scottish Cup final and to beat your rivals in the process. Is obviously you can't really top that, I don't think, unless you were to beat them in the final.
There we go then. Final score from the Falkirk Stadium today. Gets a quiet game today in the wind in Falkirk. Falkirk 3, Rangers 6. Who saw that coming in the first half? You should put in a lot there next week. Okay, let's go to the game at Tynecastle, or as Paul Mitchell says on commentary last night, Tiny. I thought that was quite funny, actually. They're a big, massive club, but nevertheless, final score, Hearts 3, Motherwell 1, Robbie, and I think similar to, I mean, we'll move on to the Celtic game in a wee bit as well, but similar to the Celtic game, Hearts were the better team. Sorry, Motherwell were the better team.
Yeah, I was going to say, Michael, I thought Motherwell actually had a few good spells in the game. It was one of these weird games where you knew it was going to be the sort of end-to-end. You know, both teams are very attacking. Both teams like, you know, playing up against each other's defence. I knew it was going to be good. And when I seen it went 1-0 Motherwell, I thought Motherwell would go on and win the game, to be honest. I thought, from what I heard, sort of listening to the game, I thought Motherwell looked better, at least in the game. And you know, you're always going to get that. Like, Motherwell have probably got one of the best attacks in the league, for being honest. The star power they've got in the attacking area is absolutely frightening at times to watch. And the longer it went on 0-0 in the game, I thought Motherwell might have had a chance, and then obviously Longelo gets the goal. I sort of thought for them Motherwell would maybe kick on, make it hard for Hearts to try and break them down. And I was kind of getting worried for Hearts, to be honest, because you were looking at that. If it finished 1-0 to Motherwell, or even one each, what Hearts ever going to get back in this title race? You know, how bad was the mentality going to be? They've slipped up the last couple of weeks. You know, it's not been plain sailing for them, but I think right at the end when they needed it, they showed their quality. Of course, we're going to talk about the penalty and all that sort of stuff, but Shankland, Braga, and Cabot showed their worth and showed why, especially Shankland, is so clinical. I thought, yeah, again, just for what I seen in the highlights, I thought Shankland looked really good again. You know, for a guy that we all come on here and sort of praise his goal record, but you look at his actual link-up play and the way he sort of pulls the team forward. He's really good at that side of his game as well. And Hearts showed why they're still in the title fight, Michael. You know, all three teams this weekend have showed why they're still in this title fight and why they should be. They've all showed that wee bit of quality just when you need it. We'll go into obviously Celtic Park. We've just spoke about Rangers making the big changes at half time to get back into it. Hearts showed their fight in the game. The only concern I have with Hearts is their squad depth. I think Kabori did come in and play quite well, but you're looking on the sort of face of the other subs. Nemdi really came on and nicked the headlines. You know, Nemdi came on really and made a difference. It was kind of the players that were already on the pitch. And look, of course, Hearts are still building a team. You know, I think a lot of people do forget that. We're still very early on into Tony Bloom era at Hearts. But you're just looking at the squad depth for the last 5 games and wondering, do these players have what it takes to come on and really make an impact in the game, or is it going to be Hearts for the next 5 games, relying on their starting 11 to try and push them through to this title?
Yeah, it was a bit of an interesting game, especially in the first half. There wasn't really much, looking at the stats and watching the highlights, there wasn't really much going on at all. And Hearts having more of the ball against Motherwell is not really something that you would have expected, but there wasn't much chances. And then it looked like Motherwell were getting a sort of grip of the game in the second half. They obviously get the goal through Emmanuel Longelo. And I agree with you, Robbie, at that point, you think, is this the end for Hearts? Are they going to be able to bounce back again and come from behind? And that's exactly what they did. They get the goal back through Braga, of course, and then by what means, controversial penalty, certainly. Lawrence Shankland has the composure to step up and take it, and then obviously Kabori gets the icing on the cake at the end. So a massive win for Hearts, because I know I tipped them to win this match. I thought it would be difficult. I just thought Motherwell's form going into the game would play a factor, and I think it probably did, because I think Motherwell had chances before Hearts got their goals to probably double their lead, or at least put more pressure on Hearts, and they never really took them. Hearts did, and that's why Hearts are top of the league, and Motherwell are now well out of this title race that they were in for a couple of weeks, because they've got that sort of clinical edge in the final third, especially Lawrence Shankland, as you said, Robbie. He's massive for them. I know Claudio Braga's probably going to grab most of the headlines come the end of the season, or certainly I think a lot of people would probably have him ahead of Shankland in terms of individual awards, but Lawrence Shankland's such a great player for Hearts, and probably I would say that the best striker in the league. Just his overall play, his sort of link-up play, his ability to come short and get involved, and also he's just a clinical goal scorer. You've seen it last week with the goal he scored against Livingston. He nearly scored an excellent volley as well. And yeah, he's just an excellent player, and I would have him starting for Scotland in the World Cup. Whether he will be is another question, but he's going to be a massive player between now and the end of the season for Hearts, and an excellent win for them. So yeah, bounce back from going behind and shows that they're not going to go down with a fight. And you know, they've led this league title for so long. So for people to think even now that Hearts are going to fall away, I think is obviously people are entitled to their opinion, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying that I think Hearts are definitely going to win the league, but I think they're going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, because they just keep getting the results, and they've brought themselves into a luxury position with the point lead they had early in the season. So results like the Livingston one could be afforded. They've obviously not got much margin for error now with Rangers and Celtic right behind them, But I think Hearts are going to cause problems for all the teams in that split, and yeah, they're going to make it really difficult for Celtic and Rangers to go at the top of the league.
Well, I'm sure if you ask any Celtic, Rangers, or Hearts fans, they would say like the performance is the performance is just a kind of like distraction at the moment. It's all about kind of like 3 points.
Yeah, that is literally all it is. You know, if this is any other time in the season, and if we go back to sort of October, November, if this is in that time and Celtic play the way they did, the Hearts play the way they did, you probably have been a wee bit critical on your team's performance. You're probably saying, and you could fling Rangers into the mix as well with the first half. You probably are questioning the performances a bit more, but at this point in the season, the fans don't care. Look at what it meant to Hearts when Braga scored that goal. I mean, it wasn't a sold out Tynecastle, but the fans' reaction was phenomenal. It looked like a cup final reaction when Hearts scored the first, and it looked even more when Shankland scored the penalty as well. It just means so much to their fans, and they just had to win. We had Graham on the show saying that as well. It wasn't ever going to be about performances, especially when now you're playing the top 6 teams. That's it now. You're playing the sort of big boys in the league, if you will. Performances don't matter. If Hearts win the rest of these games 1-0 and play really bad performances, they're not going to care come the end of the season. So, it's about getting the wins, and Hearts probably they managed to do that, but they got a wee bit of luck on their side as well.
Yeah, and you look at, we speak about performances all the time, and rightfully so. Motherwell have won 14 games this season, failed to win 19. How many of those 19 games probably would you have said Motherwell were the better team on a performance value sort of basis? But that's not what it's all about. It's about putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's what Hearts have done so well across the course of the season. Celtic and Rangers at points as well, and that's it. None of these teams are good enough to expect them to win every game, but they're grinding out results, and that's what it's about, because it's not sustainable to do it. But so one of them's going to drop points eventually. One of them is not good. Well, 2 of them obviously are not going to win this league title. One of them is, but they all, with a win this weekend, take a step closer to the title, because it's all in their own hands. They can all make their own way to that title, and that's what makes it so entertaining. For Motherwell, maybe a little bit worrying now that they've had a poor run recently. What is that? 5 games, without a win. And I think the performances have still been there in some of the games at Celtic Park. They were good for spells before Lingelo got sent off. Against Hibs, I don't think they were too poor either. I think Falkirk were the better team last week, and on another day that they can easily take something at Tynecastle, but they obviously don't, and that's where they'll need to try and bounce back, because they will want to hold on to 4th place. And I think their performances across the course of the season probably warrant 4th place, but that's not always what how football works. It's a results-driven business, and Jens Berfalasco will know that. And for Hearts and Tynecastle, they stayed behind the team. I think the fans had belief that they would get back into the game, and obviously they were rewarded. Their support throughout the season certainly rewarded, and Hearts aren't going to give up on this easily. And they obviously get the goal through Braga from the sort of corner. Stuart Finlay back in. The Hearts set up after these injuries, a massive boost for them as well. Speak about Cammy Devlin and Lawrence Shankland, but Stuart Finlay I think has been a big miss alongside Craig Halkett. And then obviously they get the penalty, which I initially I'm going to just start speaking about it. I thought it was a penalty initially, but I've seen rulings that say that why it pretty much shouldn't be a penalty. So yeah, I'll let you take this one away, but yeah, I don't think it should be a penalty, but yeah, a big decision and one possibly they've got wrong again.
Robbie?
I'm going to agree with Ethan. I don't think it should be a penalty. Like, the biggest thing I took away with it was there was no intent for the Motherwell player to hurt the Hearts player. That's first and foremost. So I think that's probably the main thing that I took into consideration when I first seen it. And of course, the Hearts boys took a sale one. Of course, as he's been booted straight in the back of the nut. It's never nice to see. But Is it a penalty? I don't think so. It is very much accidental, and I don't know how the referees have looked at that on VAR and came to the conclusion that it was intent, because that's the only way you give the penalty in that situation. If it's not intent, you can't give the penalty. So VAR have clearly looked at that decision and said, right, well, there's got to be intent there. He's clearly meant to hurt the boy, which, if you look at the clip, is just nonsense. You see where the ball movement is when he goes to swing his leg. It should never be given as a penalty. But am I surprised? I'm not, to be honest, with the way VAR's been and the way the officials have treated it this season. I'm really not surprised to see that given as a penalty. I think Motherwell fans will feel really hard done by, and so will Jens. But at the end of the day, I've probably seen worse penalties given this season. So no, I'm not really surprised. But I agree with Ethan, it should never be a penalty. But Ethan, just to ask you, would you still take Jens as Celtic manager at this point? I've seen a few Celtic fans say maybe he needs a bit more time at Motherwell. I mean, what's your thoughts?
No, I think he's shown throughout the season that he's good enough to go to that next level, whether that be Celtic or whether that be somewhere else. I think the style of play is excellent, and I know that the results haven't always been there, but I think these things usually balance out. And I think, unfortunately for Motherwell, despite how well they've done across the season to be fourth, no one expected them to be there. And another sort of scenario that I think they could easily be closer to the other three. I think the performance, the sort of the level of performance hasn't quite rewarded them at points it should do. So yeah, I think he's certainly still going to be a candidate, and I can see why people are maybe saying, "Oh, he's not won in a few games," but it's Motherwell we're talking about here. No disrespect to them, but no one expected that squad to be in fourth place in the league. So if they go on a run without winning a few games, then I don't think you can be too surprised at it, especially when in some of those games they easily could have took more points than they did. I was just reading the sort of rule book here that I seen pointed out. Playing in a dangerous manner. Playing in a dangerous manner is any action that, while trying to play the ball, threatens injury to someone, including the player themselves, and includes preventing a nearby opponent from playing the ball for fear of injury. So that would say that the foul actually should have went in the way of Motherwell, but obviously that's not the way that the referees officiated it. So I think that's why I don't think it's a penalty. And as you said, he doesn't mean to kick him in the head. He's going for the ball. It's very harsh, and yeah, very unfortunate for Motherwell. And that's the kind of things that when you're on a difficult run like they have been, that just go against you. It just seems like your luck's not in at the minute. And obviously it was for Hearts in the day, but credit to them and Lawrence Shankland. He still needs to step up and score it. And then they obviously go on to get a third as well for Kabori. So, credit to Hearts. It's not their fault that the officials gave the penalty, but I think it was really harsh and probably the wrong decision in the end.
I don't know about you guys, right, but that just sums up why there's not any match officials going to the World Cup this season from Scotland.
Aye, it perfectly sums it up. And it's, as I said earlier, it's not surprising they gave the penalty considering the way this season's gone with VAR calls, but it's unfortunately not surprising. I don't want to be the case where I'm coming on of it. I like to think, Michael, we love a good moan about VAR, don't we, on the show, but I don't like to imagine we want to be coming on the show every week and moaning about referee decisions and moaning about VAR decisions. It's the last thing we want. We want VAR to be good in the game. We want the officials to be making the right calls. But yet again, it's another decision that could prove costly for Motherwell. What kind of form are they going to go into having the split now? What are they going to be doing? Are they going to drop down the table? If so, you could look back to moments like that where on another day they're probably looking at a time castle by a point, having got nothing out of the game.
And I suppose, Ethan, right, all the talk was about Motherwell and the title race, and they were, but if you ask anybody get it for Park, they say, oh, no, they weren't. But this happened to a few weeks ago. They went to Dundee and they had that game in hand, maybe put pressure on Celtic, Rangers and Hearts, but I think Dundee beat them both at 2-0, and then after that they went to Celtic Park as well. So even though the Motherwell fans would be disappointed, but it's been a decent season for Motherwell.
Yeah, it's been a really good season, and I think that's the Motherwell fans. Although the dreams of a title race have faded, they'll still be very happy with what their manager and players have done this season, because a lot of people had them well within that bottom six, and they've been had the chance to watch. I think a lot of people would say that the most attractive football in the league, the best football in the league, and it's also been sustainable results wise as well. So, it's been a once in a, I think, genuinely a once in a lifetime season for some Motherwell supporters, that they've never seen a level of football like what Jens Berthel-Aske's brought to the club. And I think no matter how this season ends for them, they will be really grateful for what they've seen this season. But that being said, if they were to give away fourth spot, I think they would be really disappointed, and rightfully so, because they've looked the favourites for that for the duration of the season almost. So yeah, I think they should. I think they should have enough to hold on to fourth. But as you said, once they lost at Dens Park and then at Celtic Park, and you maybe expected that with less to play for, and in terms of they don't need to win every match. They've not got the motivation to win every match because they're going for an outside shot at a title. Whereas now they maybe sort of came down to the level of, okay, we just need to get fourth kind of thing. And sometimes that's a difficult mentality for the players to have, and it's one they shouldn't have, but it's only natural to sort of think that way. And I think you've seen that. But even still, I don't think the performances have been too bad, and I think the results will follow their way eventually in this split. And I think they'll have enough to hold on to fourth. I know Hibs are only 3 points behind, but I think Motherwell have got to bounce back eventually, and maybe it'll be Ibrox. I don't think it will, but we'll see what happens. It's been a funny old season.
Robbie, were you about to come in?
No. But I agree with Ethan. And to be honest, I don't know when the form turns around now, because you're looking at a split now where you are playing a tough team every single week, and the mentality is going to be low, which it will be in the Motherwell camp. They'll probably feel a bit deflated after the last couple of weeks, but you just got to keep trying. And I do really feel bad for Motherwell fans, because you're potentially now going to finish the season, right? And I don't take anything away from them. It's been a fantastic season one. As Ethan mentioned, I don't think any Motherwell fan at the beginning of the season when Michael Wimmer left the club would have dreamed of having this season. But you're now looking at a season where you've got nothing to show for it. You're potentially going to lose your manager at the end of the season. You're going to lose Elijah Just, Maswinishi potentially leaving the club. You look at other clubs round about them. You look at Falkirk, they've got a top six to show for their achievement. And by the way, top six for Motherwell still a good achievement, but Falkirk have potentially got a chance at a final in a cup here. Motherwell had that chance in November and obviously lost the game. Falkirk have at least got the top six to show. They've got progression in the last 3 years. It's a big historic achievement for the club, and of course top six is for Motherwell as well. But you just feel like with the football they've been playing, with the manager they've had, with the once in a lifetime players they've had at the club, I still believe you come across players like Elijah Just in your club once in a lifetime. That's players that don't come around very often at all. So you're now looking at the end of the season and going, you feel bad for Motherwell fans, because they might not have much to show for this if they end up falling down the table and don't manage to secure fourth place.
Yeah, and that's it. I think. No, sorry, I was just going to say a last thing. Sorry, Michael. That I think Motherwell need to go again next season, and the likelihood is that Jens Berthel-Aske is not going to be there, because he's done such a great job and improved so many players at that club, scouted so well that it's going to be difficult to hold on to him. But they went down this path. You mentioned Michael Wimmer, that they're going for the sort of foreign approach and bringing managers in that have different ideas to what Motherwell have maybe went for in the past, and it's worked. So I think they're going to go down that route again, and they just need to, you can't expect to have this season every time, but they want to. I think Motherwell now want to establish themselves as a club that play what we would say good, attractive football, and that's what they need to build into next season, and hope that they can go on another top six charge and maybe go a little bit further in the Scottish Cup, because obviously they went out in very disappointing fashion, same as the League Cup, as you referenced to, Robbie, despite getting to that semi-final. So there's definitely an opportunity for Motherwell to build on this season. They'll have great financial backing from the players that they go on to sell. They've probably still got quite a lot of that Lennon Miller cash sitting about as well. So Motherwell are in a great position to really go from strength to strength going into next season, and they'll just be looking not to make a mess of it, because it's a very common thing that happens in football when clubs have a good season, that they change too many things, or too many of the constant variables are switched out, and then it all sort of falls apart. So that's what they need to avoid. But yeah, a great season for Motherwell. But as you said, Robbie, nothing to really show for it in terms of trophies or accolades, but a perfect opportunity to build into next season.
There you go then, final score from Tynecastle, Hearts 3, Motherwell 1. Let's go on to the final title chasers. It's Celtic and Celtic 1, St Mirren 0. And I mean, I think you've got to give St Mirren credit, even though that St Mirren had a lot of the ball. I don't think they had a lot of shots at goal, but maybe Robbie will tell me something different.
Michael, I couldn't count the last time St Mirren rocked up to Celtic Park and walked away with 43% of the ball at the course of the 90. I was astonished, to be honest with you. But we also Celtic didn't really create much either. You know, it was 7 shots to 5 in the game. It wasn't a game full of shots and you know, drama at either end of the pitch, but I couldn't be any more proud of the players, I'll be honest. I don't know how many times I've come on this season and said that. There's been so many different challenges we've faced. And to turn up to Celtic Park, and I'm going to say it, we dominated the second half. We outplayed Celtic in every area. I thought we were fantastic, and if we just had that wee bit more final product in the game, we might have got away with something in the game, because I really did think Celtic were poor in large parts. The goal, to be honest, was poor defending for us, although, you know, I'm not going to take anything away from Oxlade-Chamberlain. He still had to be in the position to score. I just felt like we could have defended a bit better at times, and that was probably the frustrating part. Far too much. The midfield was dropping far too deep. We were giving Celtic too much space in the pitch, but it's all wee things that Craig McAleisher is going to tweak, you know, the next sort of week before that massive semi-final game for us in Celtic. You know, it's things to build on. It's positive. We didn't really know how the game was going to go. We seen the Green Brigade was back. I was a bit feared when I read that, to be honest. I was like, all right, well, that's just gave Celtic a huge momentum boost. They're due a big winner someday. Let's hope it's not us. And it didn't end up being us, but look, it's not often I come away for a 1-0 defeat feeling positive, but I feel really positive after watching that. And if I was Celtic, I'd probably, you know, I certainly wouldn't be fearful. You know, the Celtic have shown they can win league titles the debt season upon season, but performances like that's not going to get you. And I think Celtic know it needs to be better. But again, Michael, who cares? They get the 1-0 win, they walk away with the 3 points, and they head into a semi-final game where the advantage is St Mirren. You know, they've beat them once. They'll be hoping to go and try and do that again. And for St Mirren, they'll just be hoping to keep up that good performance, because it was a really good performance in my opinion. One that I've not seen at Celtic Park in my lifetime, to be honest with you. And I know we won there back in 2021, I think. But even that, you know, that was a very unique set of circumstances. This was us rocking out at Celtic Park and us putting a stamp on the game. You know, it was nice to watch a game where we weren't going too direct. You know, we weren't trying to play it up to Mandro and Nagunga every 2 seconds. It was get the ball done, play the football, and try and see what we can do to Celtic. And we've done that for most of the game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't think it wasn't a very entertaining game in terms of chances created, lots of shots for both teams. St Mirren didn't, as you rightly said, they didn't create a lot in terms of the final third, but neither did Celtic. They didn't have much chances at all. And yeah, it was really impressive from St Mirren. I thought it was an excellent performance, as you said, Robbie, and it was really pleasing to watch. You know, I heard that I hadn't got the chance to watch a Craig McAleisher St Mirren performance in the full 90-minute capacity until yesterday, and watching the first few minutes, I'd heard that it was a little bit more expansive style of play that they played out from the back and stuff like that. And watching the first few maybe 10-15 minutes, I didn't see a lot of that at all. It looked like a very sort of traditional St Mirren performance, and then they sort of built into the game, and they were excellent in times, and really, especially in that second half, played Celtic off the park to the point Celtic couldn't get near St Mirren. St Mirren had more possession in the second half. They looked more threatening. Celtic looked like they were running out of steam and couldn't really hold on to the game. I don't think that Celtic midfield has enough legs for me. Callum McGregor, Benjamin Negrin, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think you need a bit more physicality in there. And obviously they brought Arne Engels back off the bench, which is a big boost for Celtic. You've got Ray Hattati there as well. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain takes the goal really well. He had one before similar sort of scenario. Cal McGregor has the shot, it sort of rebounds. It was Jamal George that saved the first one, Oxlade Chamberlain finished it in, but he knew he was offside, and then the second one, McGregor has the shot, which is blocked. That's a really nice finish from Oxlade Chamberlain, but even that goal, I think, was against the run of play. I thought St Mirren looked more likely at that point. I'd say St Mirren's looked still most likely probably from set pieces, but some of the play out from the back was excellent. Gogic sitting in the sort of dropping back into the defence. He's obviously played further forward in his career. He's someone who's not shy to get on the ball, but I thought the midfield, Alan Campbell and Jacob Devaney were really solid as well. Not maybe the typical of the past St Mirren players, sort of smaller players, not as physical, but they got about the pitch, and I thought there was so many impressive performances from St Mirren. They just didn't really have that sort of creative edge in the final third, but that'll come, getting used to playing this way under McLeish, and it was an excellent performance.
Yeah, I would give McLeish a 10-year contract if we could, but no, I do think you're right. We've been missing the cutting edge for a large part of this season, but it comes with a club like St Mirren. You're never going to be getting a striker that's scoring 20 goals a season, but we've got a striker that can score at least 10 a season. And John, people forget that, 10 goals a season for a St Mirren striker is really good on the face of things. You're right with the midfield. I actually thought I was impressed with how well we ran the midfield in the game at times. I would have gave man of the match, in my opinion, to Alan Campbell. I think Oxlade Chamberlain did take it just because of the goal, but if you look on the face of things, I thought Campbell was superb at times, and that's a guy that can never break into a Stephen Robinson team. But the way he just opened up the game at times was impressive, and Devaney as well. I've been flashing his colours for a week. He's only 18, and yet he looks so mature for his age. And I said it earlier, it's not the the tricky stuff that he does well, but it's just the simple things that opens the game up that he does so well. And you look at guys like Mark O'Hara, he's playing at right wing back at Celtic Park. I never thought I'd see that ever, to be honest with you, and he actually looks really comfortable in the game. So I couldn't have been more impressed with us, to be honest, in their performance yesterday. It did give me a chance to obviously watch some of the Celtic players. I thought Maeda had a good few runs in behind at times. One player I'm still really against for Celtic is Chavin Chara. I really don't think he's a Celtic quality striker, to be honest. I've not seen one performance to suggest that since he joined the club. And when Kelechi and Nacho came on, I thought Celtic instantly looked a lot better in that area, to be honest. Kelechi, for me, should be starting for Celtic. I know there's various fitness reasons, and that's probably why he isn't, but Chavin Chara's not a starting Celtic striker, and I think that really gave us a boost. And I'm not sure even what Martin O'Neill's going to go with next week, but if he plays Chavin Chara, I'll be a lot more confident getting into the semi-final than if I see Nacho on the team sheet.
Yeah, and I think it is. I think Kelechi Iheanacho is the best striker at Celtic, but it's his fitness that's been the problem since he's got there. And Martin O'Neill commented on that before the match, and that's it. He's coming on for brief cameos. I think Martin O'Neill said that the striker said that he could play 90 minutes, but I don't know whether that's the case. And obviously, it's the chance of risking the injury, and then you've not got that option to bring off the bench. But as you said, Thomas Chavin-Chara, like last week at Dens, he just doesn't look like he's got that confidence in front of goal. I think he did have a chance in the first half, maybe one, and he didn't really make the best of it, but he wasn't really involved in the game at all. And I think just going back to St Mirren, I think what they've shown is that every player is capable of playing football like that. Like, I think there's sometimes a stigma in Scottish football that this professional Scottish footballers can't play that kind of football, but they obviously can. You've seen it in Motherwell this season, your Stephen O'Donnell's, your Paul McGinns, and you've seen it with St Mirren at Celtic Park. They broke the press on various occasions. Of course, that's coupled with the fact that I don't think Celtic are a very good team off the ball. They don't have a lot of legs, especially in that midfield. As I said, I thought Celtic got better sort of control of the game when they brought the likes of Arne Engels on and Rio Hatate, and I think that's something Martin O'Neill should consider. But I do think that he'll go with almost the same team next week, because I just think that Oxlade Chamberlain's been good to decent to good in the last few games, and he's obviously got a big goal. Benjamin Nygren's the main attacking threat for Celtic, and you don't see him dropping Cal McGregor, so I think that is the three. And then is Kelechi an actual capable of starting a match and playing at least 60 minutes? We don't know. And so I think Celtic will play the same team, but I do think they'll need to be a lot better, because I think it's only natural that St Mirren will get more chances at Hampden. And if they take one of them, then we know Celtic will be in real bother, because unlike their City rivals, they're not capable of scoring 5 goals and a half. They don't look capable of scoring 5 goals in less than 5 games, never mind 5 goals and a half. So, it's going to be difficult for Celtic. But as you said, the performances aren't the most important thing. And I think most people go to watch Celtic now expecting them not to sort of blow teams away. I think the last time was that you could say they really had a comfortable win. Celtic was against Dundee United, and that was back Martin O'Neill's first game since he returned, when they won 4-0. And even since then, there's not really been a comfortable Celtic win. So, they're grinding out the results. Is it enough to see them until the end of the season? We'll see. But a massive win, and it probably gives Celtic the slight upper hand going into the next week. But I think Craig McLeish and his players will take a lot of confidence from how they played, especially in that second half, and a lot to build on heading into Sunday's semi-final.
Robbie, I just wanted to ask you about St Mirren for a minute. I mean, they're in a kind of like unique situation in terms of like the play Celtic next week as well, albeit it's a different venue, different competition, but it's still the same opponent. And obviously, the obvious question would be, how would St Mirren build on that performance in terms of if they play another team next week, but because they're playing Celtic in the exact same different venue next week, it's a one-off game. How do they approach the game? Is it a case of building on yesterday's performance but working the keeper more?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Michael. You'll notice next week at Hampden, and I could be wrong, but I don't see the opening 10 minutes being so in Celtic's favour this time. It's a lot different when you've got the noise of the Green Brigade back, you've got the fans ready to go. You're at Celtic Park, you're going to be backs against the wall for the opening 10-15 minutes, and Craig McLeish summed that up perfectly after this game. But with over 10,000, I think, to 12,000 St Mirren fans being at Hampden next week, it's going to be a different type of atmosphere. I don't think it will be, for Celtic's point of view, I don't think it will be as bad as the last time at Hampden. The last time at Hampden, it was very much Celtic chanting "sack the board" for minute 1 to minute 90. I don't imagine it's going to be the same. The players are going to be rallying behind the team now, so you imagine it's going to be a different type of game. But I still think St Mirren will start off brighter in the game. I don't think we'll be as much backs against the wall as we were yesterday, but we just need to start taking chances. How many times did Alan Campbell and Jacob Devaney get the ball on the edge of the box, and instead of hitting it, try go sideways or try play a through ball, when you've just got to really straight the ball. There was one chance, actually, Alan Campbell got the ball and he flicked it I think it was McGregor's head, maybe, or Negrin's head, instead of hitting the ball. And it's just, I get trying to sort of get it into the box, going side by side and all that sort of stuff. But if there's a chance there, hit the ball. You never know what can happen. So I hope next week, Michael, I do hope we hit more shots, and I hope we leave everything in the pitch. It was this time 5 months ago we were screaming faith over fear. Well, we need to take that same mentality into Hampden again, and hopefully we can walk away with another upset. But guys, I'm not going to need to go, but thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week at some point for the big semi-final.
Yeah,
see you, Robert.
There we go. That was Robbie giving us take on the game yesterday. But how does Celtic build on that performance? Because I know that you were saying that Dundee United, and I know that we were talking last night, Ethan, about the game yesterday. But I think maybe out with maybe Dundee last week in the first 45 minutes, that was the best Celtic played. But apart from that, I can't seem to recall any more kind of like performances like Dundee United.
Yeah, that's it. They're not creating a lot of chances in any game, really. The Dundee first half, as you said, they did create a lot of chances and probably should have put the game to bed in that first half at the ends, but they just don't create a lot of chances. And are they going to create more next week? I would think so. But I think St Mirren will also create more chances next week. I think both teams will be looking to improve on that front. But I just don't think Celtic have really got a lot of quality in the final third. They're not a very cohesive unit. They rely, I think, mostly on sort of bits of brilliance from individuals or a little bit of fortune falling their way and stuff like that. It's not a very sustainable way of playing, but it's got results for the most case. And I think Celtic will have enough to win next week, but I think it'll be similar. I think it's going to be a really close game. Could go the distance, could go extra time, could go penalties. We don't know, but I think St Mirren have shown that they're certainly a match for Celtic, and they're going to make it difficult at Hampden again. I think the last time we've really seen Celtic creating chances on a sustainable basis was under Wilfred Nancy. The problem there was they weren't taking the chances, and the problem was they were defending so poorly, whereas it's the opposite now. They're defending not too badly, I don't think, but they're also not really creating too much in front of the opposition's goal, which is leading to these narrow victories. And is it enough to get Celtic until the end of the season? It could be, but we're going to find out. I don't think anyone has a clue on where this title's going. I seen someone yesterday on a radio station saying there's a 0% chance that Celtic win the league, which I think is crazy to say, but I can see where he's coming from in terms of the point now that the Celtic don't have a striker that's going to score goals, but they haven't needed it up until now. And are they going to need it between now and the end of the season? Of course, it'd be ideal to have one, but they've got Benjamin Negrin there, who's in the upper echelon of the league top goal scorers. So, yeah, I think Celtic they're not in the best position at the minute, but they've been in worse positions this season. I think you could say that for both Hearts and Rangers as well. So, I don't think we've learned much from this weekend, really. It's been the first weekend the second weekend, where all three teams have won. So it's a rarity in itself, and we're pretty much as we were before. Celtic fall behind Hearts and Rangers in terms of goal difference. They're the third on that front as well as points. Is that something they're going to need to improve on? We don't know. Maybe Celtic will win it outright on points, or maybe they'll lose on goal difference. But yeah, we didn't learn much, I don't think, from the three teams this weekend. But one of them's going to drop points very soon because they're all very prone to doing it, as they've shown across the course of the season.
There you go, final score from Parkhead, Celtic 1, St Mirren 0. Let's go on to the other game. Should we say the bottom half of the table now? Albeit Hibs will be in the top 6 after the post-split fixtures. Aberdeen 2, Hibs 0. And I think that I know that I was saying earlier on about the top 3. It's all about winning games, and I suppose it's all about winning games for Aberdeen, and a big, massive win yesterday for Stephen Robertson. And of course, it's his first win as Aberdeen manager.
Yeah, massive for Stephen Robinson, and at a time of real need, because after last week's defeat at his old stomping ground, a lot of people had him and his players even more tipped than they already were for that 11th place. And, this is a massive result for them to beat Hibs. They would have been second favourites. Obviously, the red card to Grant Hanley early on helps. And but Kevin Nisbet takes the penalty well against his old club, and then gets the other one, I think, to round it off. For a massive 3 points for Aberdeen. Of course, as I said, aided by the red card, and it might have been a different game, but that's the kind of thing that Aberdeen haven't taken advantage of this season, or wouldn't have taken advantage of this season, being a man up, and they did this time around in a massive 3 points, which moves a lot of other teams into the real mix. Obviously, St Mirren were already in the mix, Kilmarnock likewise, who are sitting 11th, but now Aberdeen above Dundee on goal difference, and Dundee's recent sort of lack of wins, you could say, has really brought them back into the picture. I'd say Dundee United are the only team in the bottom safe of relegation, so it makes it a really interesting finish for the 11th place as well as the title race. So an excellent result for Stephen Robinson, and a really important one for Hibs. Disappointing, especially, as I said, for Falkirk. Motherwell and Falkirk losing, it was an excellent opportunity for Hibs to really put the pressure on these two teams and go level with Motherwell. They don't this time around, but I don't think David Gray can take too much from the match, considering they played over 70 minutes, with a man down.
I think if Scotland rugby team was looking for a new player, they should look at Grant Hanley, Ethan, because I don't know what he was playing at for that second off.
Yeah, Grant Hanley is someone who's always been prone to doing something like that, a bit of a rash moment. We've seen it in the Scotland setup, and that's why so many people are against his call-ups to the squad. And will he get a call-up to the World Cup? We'll soon see. He's been Steve Clark man for so long, but putting in performances like that, I don't think he deserves one. But that was a crazy bit of defending from him, and they got the right decision in the end, I'd say, certainly.
Yeah, maybe it was actually because the Commonwealth Games is coming to Glasgow for the gymnastics. I'm not sure if that would be a bit of a routine in the gymnastics there, but there you go. Aberdeen got a man sent off. That was very debatable as well. But where do you stand there, Ethan?
Well, Aberdeen got a red card.
Yeah. Aberdeen got a man sent off.
Oh, I'm not aware of this. The only one I'd seen was the Emmanuel Giamfi, the yellow card that I think Hibs fans were wanting a red for at the end of the first half.
Oh yeah. I've okay. I'm getting mixed up now. I'm getting carried away with that Grant Hanley one too many times. No, it was just a yellow card, but I think that went to VAR as well. Ethan, is that right?
I'm pretty sure it did. It went to VAR, and the referee, who was David Dickinson, stuck with his decision. So an interesting one, and I think the Hibs players, fans, and management and David Gray are right to feel aggrieved by that, because that easily could have been a red card for the left back. And at that point in the game, when it's only 1-0, Hibs maybe would have fancied their chances to turn the game around in the second half, but it just wasn't their day in terms of the decision. And another one you can say that the officials got wrong, and another one that contributes to the what people will say is the reason why we've not got any of our officials going to the World Cup Championships.
Yeah, I'm actually just checking here, Ethan. I'm sure that went to VAR, and they gave him a yellow card. But again, I don't know why I kind of say that, but a big win for Aberdeen. Yes, you get them struggling. No, you're right. I'm talking nonsense. Aberdeen didn't get a man sent off as well. But there you go. So, but for Aberdeen, Ethan, I've been a bit disrespectful for all the other teams, because if Aberdeen managed to survive, because I know because every team's in relegation battle now in the bottom six. Well, Aberdeen fans be relieved, but still not happy, because a big team like Aberdeen shouldn't be down there.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. They shouldn't be down there. They have an illustrious history, and they're proud that they've never been relegated from the top flight. So that's something they want to hold on to. And they're not a club that should be in the bottom six, never mind in sort of relegation trouble. And the way the club's been sort of run recently, and the success or lack of success they've had consistently in the league has been of concern to the Aberdeen fans. A lot of them not happy with the hierarchy at the football club at the minute, and they feel something needs to change. So I think they're quite right to be unhappy with this season and want change, because it's not been a good season at all. And where do they go now is the question, because if we look at how many of the teams in the top six that we think are only going to get stronger, Hearts, Rangers and Celtic especially, would think get stronger. Hearts, you're looking at the Tony Bloom analytics and other trends, they only get better. Motherwell have got a real foundation to build on. Hibs are building a connection with David Gray. So, Aberdeen need to get their act together if they want to be in the top six next season. and that's where they should be with the size of their club, the finances they've spent on players. But it's just been another failure of a season for them, and I think the fans are quite right, like Paul Donaldson, to criticise this season.
Yeah, there we go. Paul Donaldson says, just started watching. Perfect timing for the Aberdeen chat. Yes, yes. But also he said that it was a hugely big result for Aberdeen yesterday. Impressive performance over what has been a very poor season. As well. I don't know, Paul, if you would agree with me there when I was saying to Ethan that if Aberdeen does stay up, well, I think they will, but nevertheless, you're in the bottom six. Would that be a kind of poor season for Aberdeen? Because a team like Aberdeen, as I call Aberdeen, a sleeping giant, Ethan, because obviously one Club City, a big support. What was it, 18,000 at the game yesterday as well. And they should be doing much better than what they are.
Yeah, they should do. And I think, an excellent achievement and moment last year, lifting the Scottish Cup for the first time in 30 years. But you would say probably over the recent years out with that maybe Hearts and Hibs have had the better of Aberdeen and maybe the consistent league finishes. Maybe I'm completely wrong about that and I'm fabricating it a little bit, but you would say they're certainly the three biggest clubs behind the two from Glasgow, and Aberdeen will feel that they're the biggest of those three and want to be up there striving to break the dominance of the Glasgow pair like Hearts have done this season, or certainly look to be doing this season. So yeah, I think there's definitely room for improvement in Aberdeen, and whether that starts in the summer is another question. But will be certainly what the Pittodrie support want and probably deserved, as you said, based on the size of the club, the attendance. A sleeping giant's probably the right term to use. A massive club, not only in Scottish football but British football.
I think me and you haven't been on the show together for a few weeks, so I'm going to ask you this question. But were you surprised that Stephen Robertson went to Aberdeen, considering that they had St Mirren's in a semi-final of the Scottish Cup with what? I think there was 9 games to go at that point.
Yeah, I think it was slightly surprising, but at the same time, maybe Stephen Robinson felt that things and Paisley had become a little bit stale with the recent performances. St Mirren weren't exactly on a hot streak. I know they had got to the semi-final off the back, of course, winning the League Cup, but maybe it was the right time for him to change and for St Mirren to change. You've seen some of the results since he's left, but until that win yesterday, it looked like he was jumping from one sinking ship to another, and the sinking ship that he got off looks to have sort of started picking up steam again, and the one that he's jumped on is lost steam. But they've got the big win yesterday, and Aberdeen are in a good position. That will hopefully, from an Aberdeen point of view, give them the confidence to go and get enough points in the split. And yeah, it's in their hands, like it is for the title challenges. It's in all of those clubs' hands, apart from obviously Livingston. It is still in Livingston's hands, but I think everybody, I think it would be very hard pushed to find anybody, apart from probably Marvin Bartley, that thinks Livingston are still going to be in the Scottish Premiership come next season. But yeah, for every team in the bottom six, apart from them and Dundee United, it's going to be a dogfight for points until the end of the season.
And as for Hibs, David Gray, Hibs seems to be doing up and down this season, but they seem you would say this season is over in terms of they can't go up, they can't go down. I think the biggest game that they're looking forward to is a Hearts game in a few weeks at Easter Road.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect start to the split, because I think for all of those, the bottom bottom half of the top half of the split. That's a bit of a weird way to say. I'll just say the teams from 4th to 6th: Motherwell, Hibs, and Falkirk. 60% of their games in the split are going to be against the title challengers. The other ones against the 2 other teams that are competing for those European places. But it's going to be difficult for any of those teams to jump up above each other in positions, because there isn't too many points up for grabs. There's not any wins in this league guaranteed, especially when you're playing against teams in that top 6. So it's going to be really difficult for Hibs to catch Motherwell, even though it's just 3 points. The goal difference between the 2 teams is massive as well. It's going to be even more difficult for Falkirk to catch Hibs. So I think Hibs are probably a safe bet for 5th, but David Gray will be telling his players and have aspirations of going for 4th place and getting a better position in European qualifiers. I think that would get them after what was a really impressive qualifying campaign this season. Some great moments in there. The Kieran Bowie goal comes to mind. The comeback in Warsaw, which unfortunately, it never was. I'm forgetting about it now. But I remember they did come back in Warsaw, and then the home side went on to win. So they brought us some real entertainment and qualifying, and hopefully them and all the teams can really have a go at Europe next season and put Scotland back on the map in terms of European football, not just as a nation, because I think we've done that in qualifying, but certainly not at club level.
I think they did not lose the goal right on full time for extra time.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, they did. They scored in the 93rd minute Legia to make it 3-2 on the night and 4-4 on aggregate, and then they scored in the 98th minute the 8th minute of extra time to send them through. So it was really unfortunate for Hibs because they played excellent as well, and obviously the previous round against Partizan Belgrade at Easter Road was the one that they should have won as well. And it had that excellent Kieran Bowie goal in it, which will be forever remembered probably by everybody, not just the Hibs fans. So I think it's been a roller coaster season, and I don't think Hibs have had the consistency of Motherwell despite being 3 points behind. I think, as you've said, it's just been up and down for Hibs, and that's why nobody's really went, well, Hibs are having a solid season, because it seems like it's sort of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, where they look like they're going to go on a run and then they get a setback like this. Obviously, you can't do much about an individual error, making a sort of silly decision and getting sent off. But, David Gray's message will be that it was a collective responsibility after that Grant Hanley error, and that's one they'll need to bounce back from. And I am not 100% sure who they play first in the split. Is it? It's Hearts, of course. Yeah, we just spoke about it.
I think that's Bank Holiday Monday. It's a weird 5:30 kickoff, but there we go. Even we called this game at on Friday show, Dundee United Livingston. We called this game a kind of boring game because we didn't know what to expect. But who knew? Dundee United won 3-2 against Livingston.
Yeah, I know. It's the 2 teams that you would say were they have the least to play for across the entire league. Dundee United look very good for 7th place, and Livingston look, unfortunately for them, very good for 12th place. And I think for Livingston, what they want to do now and what Marvin Bartley will really want to do is get that win. And you thought that they were going to get the win when Lewis Smith got the 2 quick goals in the second half, but it wasn't to be. Dundee United come back and get the win at Tannadice to even more confidently strengthen their grip on topping that bottom half. But for Livingston, that's them down and out now. There's no way back. And it's been unfortunate because the performances have been a lot better since Marvin Bartley came in, and the question will be asked, had they sort of switched David Martindale out for Marvin Bartley a bit earlier, had would he be able to turn things around? But the same time, you can make the point that they're not getting enough wins. It's been draws or defeats still, and that'll be it. He'll want to get that win, because one win in a league season is abysmal, and I don't think Livingston are actually that bad. But that's like we spoke about with Motherwell. It doesn't matter how well you're performing or how poorly performing. It's the results that matter, and that's why Livingston are bottom of the league and will be relegated into the Scottish Championship.
And I think Dundee United's a bit like Hibs. There's no get anything to play for this season. They're just playing out the remainder of the game. But are you surprised Dundee United this season? Because I thought, that they'll kick on, because obviously they came up from the Championship. And Jim Goodwin has got them playing good football, but obviously this season's a wee bit different.
Yeah, as but I think there was always going to be more difficult for Dundee United with the amount of turnover they had in the summer, the amount of players that left, the amount of new players they got in from all different sort of countries and leagues. You look at the scorers. I know Will Ferry, obviously a standout from last season, a standout from this season, got his first United goal, crazily enough, I thought, against Celtic, and then obviously the standout yesterday with the goal and the assist, and then Zach Sapsford gets the winning penalty from Australia, and the other scorer was Kerestes, who is Hungarian, who they got from on loan from the Hungarian league. So they've got so many different nationalities, players from different leagues in that squad, and that's the way Dundee United have been operating for across the last 2 seasons. It's probably what they're going to do again in the close season. So yeah, they're a really unpredictable bunch, Dundee United, but I think Jim Goodwin's done a good job at steadying their Scottish Premiership status, because you look at what happened to Dundee when they came up. They came up, had a good run, got into top 6 like United, and then next season were really down there and just about sort of avoided that relegation playoff when they obviously sat Tony Docherty. So for United, it's been good for them, because they're well safe within this division now, and they'll be looking to build on that and go for top 6 next season. But I think Jim Goodwin's done a decent job. I know he's got a few critics, especially at Tannadice, but United aren't one of the teams with the biggest budget in the league, so he's done a decent job. Although they would have loved to be in the top 6 again, but they just fell short in the end to Falkirk, who have been an excellent story of promotion as well, and maybe we'll see that again with Simo Valakari, St Johnstone, or Mark Wilson's Partick Thistle, whoever it may be that goes on to win the Scottish Championship. Both of them with big wins yesterday.
Yep, and let's just dive right into the last game of the weekend then. Certainly for the Premiership, it was Kilmarnock 2, Dundee 2 in the Neil McCann Derby. I called this one, Ethan. Who, I don't know about you, but is a point better for Kilmarnock in this one?
I don't know. I don't think it's ideal for either of them. I think they would have both looked at it as a really great opportunity to get a win before the split. For Dundee, they would have moved, what would that have been? They would have moved to 35 points, which would have been 8 clear of Kilmarnock and 8 clear of 11th, which you probably would have said that was Dundee joining their Tannadice Street neighbours and being safe for the drop. But obviously now they're not. 5 points ahead of Kilmarnock. For Kilmarnock, they could have won and leapfrogged St Mirren and been out at 11th place come the first game of the split. But yeah, not an ideal result for either of them. But obviously, I think the big talking point in this match, out with the goals, Kilmarnock obviously take the lead on 2 separate occasions through Hugh Hill and Sean Larson, Murray and Scott Wright answering back on both occasions. But the wait at the end for the penalty to be awarded to Dundee, I think it was 6 to 8 minute wait that VAR took to make the final decision, which it's incredible. It's ridiculous, and you can understand why Neil McCann and Stephen Presley were frustrated with it after the game. Obviously, Joe Wesley goes on to miss the penalty, and you probably can't blame him with the amount of time that we probably had to think about it. So yeah, that's something that I think we'll need to get an answer for. I think there has been maybe some light sort of showing on it, but we'll need to find out why it took so long. I imagine it was probably a technical difficulty rather than the officials trying to make a decision for 8 minutes, because as people have said 100 times, if you're taking even more than, I would say, 2 minutes to make a decision, then that can't be something that VAR needs to intervene with. I understand if it's a factual decision. I think there was that element within it. But yeah, it's just over-refereeing the game, VAR, in this sort of scenario. It doesn't need to be the case, but he obviously went on to miss the penalty, and the spoils were shared in the end.
Yeah, the spoils were shared. And before we go, Ethan, just to run through the championship scores, and there was a big result on Friday night. Queen's Park won, Ross County 0, and there was a bit of a fight, you would say, at the end of the game. But it was a big win for Queen's Park. A big blow to Ross County. They've got I think they've got 4 games now until the end of the season. And yesterday, we had games in the championship. Let me get the results up. Ayr United 1, Arbroath 0, Packet Thistle 2, now against Conferman. Red Rovers 2, Morton. Red Rovers 3, Morton 2, and the big one at McDermott Park, St Johnstone is near. I would say St Johnstone is near there, even because they'll be early 4-0 at home.
Yeah, 5 points ahead of Thistle with 3 games to go, so that would say you need 5 points to wrap up the league. So 2 more wins, or a win and 2 draws for St Johnstone. They've got to head to East End Park, which will be a difficult game. Then Dougie Emery's side coming to McDermott, which will also be a difficult game, and then going to Ayr United, which obviously a little bit of an element of unpredictability there. But yeah, I think the really surprising thing was the manner in which St Johnstone beat Airdrie, because Airdrie obviously off the back of winning 4-0 themselves at Dingwall last weekend, coming in as the second favourites to win at Ross County, and then they really put the pressure on Ross County, and it looks like they are going to get back-to-back relegations, which is crazy to think about with the amount of money they've spent this season. Ross County being in League One after being in the Premiership last season is not something a lot of people would have backed. So yeah, Ross County, 3 games left to save their season, as you said. Airdrie have got a game in hand as well. So yeah, entertaining in that division as well at both ends of the table.
Yeah, no, Paul Donaldson's just talking about Ross County there as well. Yeah, so all could play for in the Premiership and also in the Championship as well. And we'll be here every kick of the ball. Thanks to Robbie, thanks to Ethan for joining us this afternoon. Thanks for your comments as well. Much appreciated. And we'll be back next Friday to preview the Scottish Cup weekend semi-final. First up, we've got the Fife Derby, a small matter of Conferman and Red Rovers. And Sunday, we've got Paisley against Glasgow, St Mirren against Celtic as well. So, so we'll be back again on Friday night, live at 5 o'clock, only here on the Scottish Football Zone.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions